On the banks of the Nile in southern Egypt in 1896, archaeologist Flinders Petrie led an excavation in Thebes. Here he unearthed one of the most important discoveries in biblical archaeology, a stone monument dedicated in honor of Pharaoh Merneptah, son of Ramses the Great, which has become known as the Merneptah Stele. The very final lines of the stele mention a people heretofore unattested in inscriptions, the people Israel. This is a stele inscribed with a description of Pharaoh Merneptah and his victories, his military victories in the late 13th century. It was found by Sir Flinders Petrie in Thebes along the Nile in Egypt. And it's amazing because it contains our first extra-biblical reference to Israel, named overtly and specifically as a group of people. This is a really cool model, 3D model. It is larger right now, so we can get into it than the real one, which is in the Cairo Museum in modern-day Egypt. The actual Merneptah Stele is about roughly twice as tall as I am. So it's a big stone. It's a big inscribed stone, but not quite this big. Now, the Merneptah Stele describes mostly the pharaoh's victories to the west of Egypt in Libya, but almost as an afterthought, in the bottom lines of the stele, Merneptah mentions an excursion, a campaign up into the land of ancient Canaan, and victory over a number of peoples. And what's fascinating for our purposes is the fact that Israel is actually mentioned. It's in these bottom few lines here, and it comes after mention of Gezer and Ashkelon as also other places that have been, peoples that have been conquered by Merneptah. What's different about Israel, and this really should be noticed, is that in the case of Ashkelon and Gezer, there's a determinative right after the name of the place that indicates that these are fortified cities, fortified city-states. The determinative or hieroglyphic marker is a throw stick plus 3 mountains. But what's different about Israel is that after the name Israel is written, the determinative has the stick, but not the 3 mountains. Instead, it has seated figures, and underneath 3 short vertical lines, a pluralizing effect, so that these people, Israel, they are indicated to be not a Canaanite city-state, but a pastoral, semi-nomadic people, if you will. They're living with their flocks, probably in villages, or moving around. They don't have fortifications and large cities on tells like the Canaanites down in the plain in Ashkelon, for example, would have. So tells us something very interesting about Israel beyond the fact that we have the first attestation of the existence of Israel in the land from this very early time, this period of the settlement, this period roughly that the Bible sets the stories of the judges in. So we're going to take a little bit of a close look at this, and it's a very exciting monument and a very exciting first mention of Israel. Okay, friends, let's go through the hieroglyphics. So we've got E, C, Re, A, L. Israel. Then we've got the determinative. Let's also look for a little clause about Israel. We've got the negative marker, then the hieroglyphics for seed, and then the possessive, his. So his seed is not, his seed is gone. And of course, that statement proved to be far too premature. And in fact, this is just the beginning of Israel's life in the land. Now let's pause for a moment. Go back in time to Egypt in 1896 and just imagine the excitement of finding this stele. It was the very earliest days of modern scientific archaeology, and the English Egyptologist, the eccentric Sir Flanders Petrie, was working near the Nile at Thebes, the ancient city of the dead, and bang, his workers unearthed a stone monument. Imagine pouring a little water on it and having the scene emerge. The scene at the top of the Merneptah Stele portrays Pharaoh Merneptah's officers handing him a sword in commemoration and celebration of his great victories, both over Libya and its allies and over all the foes in Canaan that he conquered and subdued. To conclude this video, I'd like to take another, closer look at the immediate literary context, really the poetic context, on the Merneptah Stele, where the name Israel occurs. Plundered is the Canaan with every evil, carried off is Ashkelon, seized upon is Gezer. Enoam is made as that which does not exist. Israel is laid waste, his seed is not. Huru is become a widow for Egypt. The text is very carefully structured. Essentially, we should read it as poetry. On the outside of this strophe, we've got mention of Canaan at the beginning and Huru at the end. The two are synonyms for the Levant. Between these bookends that focus us on the Levant, on Canaan, the text details 4 peoples that Pharaoh subdued. And as they are listed, Pharaoh is moving from the lower left to the upper right, and then back down towards Egypt to the lower left. As these interior peoples are subdued, Canaan Hero becomes, poetically speaking, a widow, because Egypt has deprived it of its strong partner interior forces, which it encompassed. Now, we cannot press the poetic metaphor of widow too far, because we know that Huru, Canaan, was left with populations after Merneptah's campaign ended. Just so, the statement that Israel's seed is not cannot be pressed, because in fact, though Israel suffered a major blow and didn't recover for a generation, Israel did in fact recover with a resilience that would prove remarkably characteristic. If the metaphor of seed does not refer to progeny and population, it may actually refer to agriculture, so that Merneptah has devastated the agricultural abilities of Israel as a people. And there we have it, a 10-minute summary of the importance of the Merneptah Stele for biblical studies. Thanks for coming along.